everyone. This is panel discussion session on economic development and urban mobility. The session is chaired by and moderated by Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, followed by panel discussion. I will just touch upon brief profile of Shri D.S. Mishra sir. Shri D.S. Mishra belongs to 1984 of Indian Administrative Service from Uttar Pradesh cadre. He has held various assignments in union and state governments covering revenue, administration, internal security, vigilance, civil aviation, tourism, sports, agriculture, taxation, medical and health, mining and urban development. He has taken keen interest in promoting good governance and has published various papers on the subject related to governance, public administration and development administration in national, international journals and books. He had been visiting faculty in University of Guelph, Canada. He is fond of trekking, sports and tourism. Now I will hand over this. With this word, I hand over the platform to Chairman Sir for conducting the session. Sir.
Very good afternoon to everybody. I welcome the keynote address to be given by Dr. O.P. Agrawal. He is the head of World Resource Institute in India. Very warm welcome to you, sir. I also welcome Sri Ashish Kundra, who is the Principal Secretary and the Commissioner of Transport in the Government of NCT of Delhi. Mr. Takio Konisi, who is the Country Director of Asian Development Bank. Mr. Vinay Kumar Singh, who is the Managing Director of the National NCRTC. Professor Sevaram, who is from the School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi. And Mr. Yes Crozet, the leading French economist from Institute of Political Science, Lyon University. The subject which we are going to discuss in this panel discussion today is economic development and urban mobility. Definitely, as the countries are urbanizing, we have already crossed the world over more than 50% of the population living in the urban area. India, this urbanization is moving at a very rapid pace. We are projected to cross the mark of 50% by 2051. And not only that, the size of the cities are growing. We have got large number of cities with 1 million plus, and that number is going to grow from 53 to 83 in next 10 years. With this kind of a thing, transport posing a major challenge to the urban living, we need to focus on what is to be done so that people have access to school, access to the markets, access to the medical facilities, health facilities, access to the business places, or whatever they want to, they have to have access. So how is this economic development and transport are going to get together? We need to focus on various things like moving from the personal to the public transport or to the shared transport, improving the access to the various things through the innovative way of mobility. It could be just bringing the thing right next to their place, that is to the urban planning, or empowering the local government, how they can address this issue, the greater involvement of the private sector in this endeavor. And last thing, which is innovation and promoting Atmanirbharta, that is the Make in India. We can be more dependent on our own resources. Under this background, I'll request Professor O.P. Agrawal, Dr. O.P. Agrawal, not professor, but Dr. O.P. Agrawal. Sorry, sir, for I think you are a professor. I mean, I've heard you at various forums as a professor, so it was a word which came automatically. So I request Dr. O.P. Agrawal to give a keynote address which will open up the discussion today, which I'll close at the end, how things develop today, that how urban mobility has become a very important, a very significant issue to be addressed innovatively in time to come, so that it keeps pace with economic development and brings ease in the people's living. So I hand over to Dr. O.P. Agrawal, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mishra. Thank you for your very kind words. I'm neither a professor nor a doctor. I'm learning from everybody. And every time I meet you, there's something new I always pick up. So we're all learning together. But what I want to do is, my role in this was to really just make a background presentation with an audience like this, with a panel like this. I don't want to make suggestions on what should be done, but I will just make a background presentation on what the problem is and pose a few questions at the end, just so that the discussions in the panel can be focused, just to retain that focus in that panel, highlight the linkage between economic development and urban mobility. And at the end of it, if you feel appropriate, I can come back with some of my own thoughts. But I'll just make a very quick presentation on what the challenge before us right now is. So let me just, is my screen visible? Is this full screen visible?
Yes, very much.
Okay. So essentially, urban mobility and economic development have a very close linkage. Why this linkage? Good urban mobility improves access to jobs, education, healthcare, and recreation, as you mentioned in your opening remarks. So good urban mobility improves access. It also means that poor urban mobility can constrain economic growth and social well-being. So urban mobility in many ways I have referred to as the circulatory system in the human body. As long as blood is flowing smoothly, we are alive, we are aware, we are active. But if blood flow gets constrained, we all know what happens to us. Think of the same thing as urban mobility. It's like the circulatory system in the human body. Now, economic growth will lead to greater urbanization and higher incomes. Now, this means that there is possibility of increased personal motor vehicle use, which can worsen urban mobility. This is really the linkage between the two. One can constrain the other. If the other grows, it can constrain urban mobility. So this is where the linkage really comes. Now, we've seen examples of this in our country. As we had economic growth, this is the pace at which personal motor vehicles, or rather motorization in the country, grew. It started from sometime in the mid-1980s, but scaled up after liberalization and after the economic growth really started happening. Doesn't seem to be showing signs of slowing down. It's rapidly growing. So this is something which is the result of economic growth. And if you just show it in the form of a graph, while our population grew by about 90% between 1981 and 2019, roughly a period of 40 years, the number of motor vehicles grew at 5,500%, just to show the impact that economic development has had on motorization. And this has been the result that we have seen. It's not just, there are other pictures which really show the huge congestion that we have seen as a result of this motorization. Now, it's not just congestion. We are also having problems of severe urban air pollution. We're having problems of road accidents. More than 150,000 people die in road accident deaths in a year in India. Globally, it's about 1.3 million people a year. India has a large share of 150,000. We have increasing greenhouse gas emissions. This is becoming a global concern. In fact, our Prime Minister himself has gone to Glasgow to take part in the upcoming Committee of Parties discussions in Glasgow in the next few days. So this is becoming a global concern today. In addition, we have a galloping oil import bill, something that we really can't go on at this rate. All this is the result of increased motorization, but partly contributed to by the economic development and the income levels that we are seeing. Now, all this is happening despite relatively low per capita income in India, and also relatively low vehicle ownership levels in India. These will go up. And when these goes up, what's going to happen? Now, India has, and rightly to my mind, articulated the ambition that we want to become a $10 trillion economy by 2030, which means a near quadrupling of our economy in the next 20 years or next 10 years. So it's about 2.75 trillion today, looking at 10 trillion. It means we are looking at economic growth, and we must look at that economic growth. But what impact will it have on urban mobility? What is it that we need to do about urban mobility? That really is the focus of this panel discussion. So with that, will the urban mobility challenges limit our ambition to become a $10 trillion economy? Will the growth, if that growth happens, will it worsen the problem of urban mobility as we see it today? I think that is the focus of the discussion today. And with this, some questions that I would like to pose to the panel is this a likely scenario? What I articulated just now, is this a likely scenario? What should we do about it? And finally, are there new paradigms? Are there new ways of thinking that we can leverage? Is there an Atmanirbharta in dealing with our problems? Is there some unique solution that we need to find to the Indian conditions which can help us resolve this problem? I will leave it at this and then look forward to the discussion. I'll be happy to come back whenever you would like me to. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, OP sir. Very nicely posed the three questions, and they keep pondering us. And we have in our panel Ashish Kundra, who is the Principal Secretary cum Commissioner Transport of the Government of National Capital Region of Delhi. A graduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and having held various kinds of positions, he is the head of the transport, civil wing of the transport in the capital city of India. The capital city has come in the public notice for various reasons in the recent past, and one of them has been the air pollution. It is one among the top 19 city posing health hazards due to the air pollution. And transport is one which contributes heavily on this. We have had this ministry has come out with a report, and Dr. OP was part of it. The various other experts have come out with how to address the issue of congestion in the city of Delhi. That's a very, very important question. And Ashish is into the thick of it. I look forward to his dispositions on this particular matter, and also the questions which have been posed by Dr. O.P. Agrawal. Over to you, Ashish. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, very much. Very much.
Thank you, sir. So I think I will start off with the issues which you have raised about pollution in Delhi, which is very germane to today's discussion, and the contribution of vehicular pollution in the overall pollution framework in Delhi. And of course, everybody is aware that in the last decade or so, considerable measures have been taken on switching to CNG, cleaner fuels, both in public transport and private mobility. But the next step now, sir, which we have kind of we are now taking a leap of faith in terms of public transport to switch to electric mobility. And we have just prepared a blueprint of kind of going in for a procurement of nearly 4,000 electric buses for public transport in Delhi, which will perhaps be the biggest procurement in the country, and I presume globally as well, one of the largest such procurements. So that is one aspect, sir. The second is that in terms of enabling the fleet aggregators now, which are a big player in shared mobility space in Delhi and the NCR region, we have come out with some draft guidelines for companies like Uber, Ola, and all these companies which are into shared mobility, as well as companies which are engaged in last mile delivery of services and goods. to kind of create a carrot and stick framework, which in a way nudges them towards electric mobility as well. So there is a twin approach on of the Delhi government, both on public transport and on shared mobility. In terms of encouraging private citizens to make that switch, of course, we have a very ambitious Delhi electric vehicle policy, which has kind of given mandates of the framework in which people, and they have demand incentives for cars and for two-wheelers and three-wheelers to make that switch. In fact, I'm very happy to share and to see the last quarter results of sales of four-wheelers. And more than 6.8% of the new four-wheelers sold in Delhi were electric, which is a very interesting number, because earlier we were kind of hovering less than 1%. So it's a very encouraging sign that people are taking to electric mobility. And as the problem of electric charging infrastructure also gets solved, I expect that in the next few months, there'll be a greater transition in that. And as far as auto rickshaws is concerned, similarly, we have recently issued permits, a notification for permits of 4,000 electric autos. And going ahead, we will be mandating that all auto rickshaws, which were earlier running on CNG, will now run on electric autos. So that is broadly the framework on the pollution and electric mobility frameworks, which I thought in my initial comments that I wanted to make at this juncture.
Thanks a lot, Ashish. In fact, you dealt on various measures which government of Delhi has been taking. I mean, that constitutes whether it was the start of the CNG gas before the Commonwealth Games, or promoting electric mobility, promoting some public transport system. Just to add to that, the Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, which is one of the very important metro network across the globe in terms of the technology and in terms of their performance on all counts. So this has also contributed a great deal towards making the city much cleaner and greener. They have a strong network of 393 kilometers in Delhi and in and around Delhi. I mean, that's in the close by city. And for the first time in the country, a regional rapid transport is coming up. Delhi to Meerut has been sanctioned, 82 kilometers to be covered in just 55 minutes, with stoppages on 14 intermittent stations. So this is going to completely change the paradigm. I mean, Dr. OP mentioned about the paradigm change. This regional rapid transport is going to bring that kind of a paradigm change. Something what was done by the DMRC, but what has been missed out is to connect to the regional centers so that the economic growth takes place away from Delhi and people can come and meet here. They can live happily with a much cleaner environment, come in the morning, go back in the evening, just maybe a few minutes away from Delhi, city of Delhi. So, this NCRTC is also working strongly on connecting to northern side or the other sides like via Gurgaon to the SNB, to the Sonipat and Panipat. All these things are on the card and they're working on this. So they are going to contribute to this. So now let me call upon, we have got the Managing Director of NCRTC, Binay Kumar Singh, who is, a railway officer who is currently heading the National Capital Region Transport Corporation. He is a graduate from he's a graduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, postgraduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and prior to that, he had done his graduation from Allahabad. So, to you, Binay, I want your perspective on making, the paradigm change in the urban transport and addressing the issue of economic growth which is inevitable. When the country is going to grow, there is absolutely no question of country. There's not only it's an ambition, but it's also a reality. The policies are all focused towards that. Over to you, Vinay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. And good afternoon to Agrawal, sir, and to my distinguished co-panelists, colleagues, and friends. But so I'm happy that this forum, I'm able to share some of my thoughts about a very pertinent question which Agrawal sir has raised. So he has spoken about whether this kind of scenario is likely or not. So I fully agree that yes, this scenario is not only likely, but it is inevitable, and it is shortly we are going to face all this, sir. And sir, I have prepared few slides. With your permission, I would like to share them here.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Sir, see, I feel that the economy of the country is going to be driven by mega regions, sir. So we have seen in last few decades that the economic activity is concentrated in some areas all across the country. And these regions, these big cities, they are the engines of economic growth of the country, sir. If we see a scenario, a projected scenario from 2018 to 2028 on the right-hand side, the country, so there are 7-8 clusters, 7-8 regions where the economic activity is concentrated, sir. And if we see the distribution of affluent and elite households in these clusters, so it is significantly increasing in absolute numbers, in percentage terms, both, sir. So what is going to happen in these clusters, sir? There will be a lot of economic activity, hence the requirement of mobility in that. NCR is one of such reasons, sir. These clusters, as the economic activity will increase, the propensity to have private vehicles will also increase, because it is not only it has economic background, but it has a social background also. In India, if you have money, you would like to purchase a house and a car. So car is something which immediately comes in the mind, which is going to create a few problems in these urban centers. As we can see, the similar picture what Dr. Agrawal had also shown, sir, the roads are congested. We see, in spite of about 21% of the area of the Delhi city under the roads, still the roads are congested. In spite of making of large number of flyovers and all kind of facilities, the roads are congested. Sir, a recent report of EPCA, they had shown that about 40% increase is there in the vehicular pollution in last 1 decade, from 210 to 220. And the contribution of pollution of these vehicles in the pollution is of the same range, almost like 40-42%. Now, within Delhi, sir, if we see, the large number of vehicles are coming from outside Delhi. Almost like 40 to 50% of the vehicles which are moving on the road, which are plying on the road of Delhi, come from NCR, outside Delhi. And if we don't stop people through provision of public transport from NCR to Delhi, then this number is not going to reduce, rather it is going to increase. Sir, Delhi will be surpassing Tokyo in next 8 to 10 years in the population. So we have to prepare today, and not only the NCR, the other clusters in the countries about which I was just talking. We have to start working on those areas, on those regions also, to provide seamless connectivity. So we know that on national level, there is a Indian Railways, airlines, and now the high-speed rail is being constructed for longer distance travel. At city level, we have bus rapid transit, we have metro rails, we have city buses, we have auto rickshaws. And for last mile also, similarly, we have IPTs, we have rickshaw, feeder buses. But sir, at regional level, we don't have a system through which people can move seamlessly in an integrated manner from point to point. And there is no need to change the mode of transport. at the city boundary or maybe in the state boundary or maybe in the next state. So digital rail system is very essential for mega regions. Sir, it has been seen across the world in last few decades that all metropolitan cities or metropolitan regions, they have gone for high-speed regional rail systems. Only then they could control the horizontal sprawl of urban centers. And we have these proven stories, proven cases among us. We know that it has successfully controlled the horizontal sprawl. So one particular case I would like to mention here, this is regarding Paris. Paris has provided regional rail through RER services or through Transilien. So these are high-speed rail-based systems. There are many lines which come to the CBD, and this system is supported by other networks which are provided through metro buses, tramways, buses, or the last mile connectivity modes. Now, this network of networks, when it functions, then very smoothly, seamlessly, it provides mobility to large number of people from all across the region. People come for economic activity to the CBD and they go back in the evening without increasing the horizontal sprawl or population density within the Paris city. So the whole thing is very sustainable and they control the limits of Paris. Sir, here also what I think is there is a need that we create network of networks. We go for multimodal integration of various public transport modes, and not only public transport, but for last mile connectivity, there may be private transport also. For example, I tell you in RRTS what we are doing. We are connected with the Indian Railway stations, with the Delhi metro stations, with the upcoming Metro New or Metro Light corridors in the NCR, then city buses and airport. Now, when we connect with all these networks from city to city, from tier 1 city, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, then complete network gets created and people can move seamlessly from one mode to another. So just for the illustration, if you see on the right hand side, in Meerut, we are not only developing the RRTS, but we are developing a metro also, and people from metro or from any other bus service, they can move to the RRTS, and then when they reach, let us say, Sarai Kale Khan, then they can board Indian Railway trains or metro, or they can go to the Delhi airport or take bus services. All this in a very integrated way, in coordination with the state government, in coordination with the local bodies. We are providing this kind of multimodal integration. And so recently, Honorable Prime Minister has also spoken about Gati Shakti. This is Gati Shakti where we can probably provide the seamless connectivity between public transports and serve the complete region in a holistic way. For doing all this, we will need the support of the private sector also. And we are doing it without going into the details of what we are doing. But for this kind of systems, public transport system, whether they are rail-based, we are doing a few things like private operator, bringing private operator for the O&M, then automatic fare collection through the private sector, rolling stock also, not only the procurement. We have bundled the maintenance of the rolling stock with that particular procurement, and private sector will be doing the in a very, very economic way and cost-effective way, the maintenance also. Sir, you touched upon a very pertinent point of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat also, we know this, that until unless we create capacity and we create manufacturing within the country, it will not be possible to sustain these highly capital-intensive public transport system, whether it is a metro, whether it is a RRTS. So we have to create local capacities, and we are trying and we are working hard in that direction. And during this process, almost 100% of the train sets which we are going to use in RRTS are being manufactured in country. The very advanced track slab technology also we have developed in the country. Now we have the capability to design and manufacture these tracks and install these tracks. Similarly, the very advanced signaling telecommunication technology we are bringing in within the Make in India guidelines of the government with 50% local content. And sir, one very important development which you are aware of, but I would like to share in this forum also, the platform screen doors, a safety device at platform, which used to be imported till now. We are going to use our own indigenously developed PSD in the next corridor of RRTS and many other corridors of metros and other systems. This we are jointly developing with DL. Prototype is almost ready. We are going to commission the prototype next month, sir. So there is a lot of emphasis on Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat for sustaining these important public transport systems in future, sir. So there is one more thing which is very pertinent here is, sir, this is regarding the transit-oriented development, which with the cooperation of the local bodies, whether it is GDA in Delhi or the Meerut Development Authority or Ghaziabad Development Authority, we are closely working with them to ensure that land use patterns and the urban transport modes are so closely the work that we can optimize the not only the transport demand, we can reduce the transport demand, and wherever there is a transport demand, we can effectively and efficiently serve that. So this is a very important component, I feel, of the whole thing, where we are giving a lot of emphasis. So I would like to close on this, sir, but just to add one last point, we are going to use the lean capacity on the system for moving the urban freight in whole of the region, sir. This is something we can use with minimal capex. We can use the spare capacity on the network for moving the urban freight with much reduced congestion on the road and pollution in the city, sir. So this is all I wanted to share on this particular issue, sir.
Thanks a lot, Vinay. In fact, you touched upon various very, very important issues, which I think during the course of our panel discussion, it will all come up for the discussion. So I don't want to repeat them. So you are aware that NCRTC is progressing very fast, and I'm quite confident as a chairman of the company that in the year when we are celebrating the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the 75th year of Indian independence, by next December, we will have the first 17 kilometers of RRTS line operational. People will be able to use this new mode of transport in this country. And all this RRTS complete thing, I think in the next 4 years, it will all be on, and we will be moving towards the next line. In fact, the very important thing which you said was there is a regional development. It is not only the city, like DMRC has covered not only Delhi, but even the cities around Delhi. But now NCRT has taken further ahead. So like that, any region has got a special kind of professional know-how, a special kind of availability of certain resources, and that is conducive for the regional economic growth. And for that to happen, something of the kind of NCRTC is going to be the order as India progresses from the $5 trillion to $10 trillion economy. It is all inevitable. It is not something to guess. It's going to come. The country's policies are all focused towards this. NCRTC, in making of this NCRTC to happen, Asian Development Bank is playing a very, very important role. In fact, when we were working on it, the chairman of the ADB, he visited and we had interaction with the whole team. They have been a big contributing it, not only in terms of the money, because money is important, but also the technology, the technical cooperation. That's very, very important. In fact, ADB has played a very, very important role in our various other cities, apart from NCRTC, whether it is the Bangalore Metro, or whether it is the MMRDA's metro lines, or Jaipur Metro line, which is already completed. They are also as a co-partner in the Chennai Metro Phase 2. It's another metropolis in the country. And they have shown interest in the Nasik Metro New. So I'm sure ADB is going to contribute a great deal in the countries moving forward towards from the economic growth and to that improving the urban mobility. We have with us the country director, Mr. Tekyo Konisi. I don't need to introduce him. He is a master's degree from the Public and International Affairs from University of Pittsburgh, USA, and he has the bachelor's degree in the Political Science from Lynchburg College, USA. He had been he has had over 2 decades of experience working in the Asian Development Bank. So now I call upon the panelist, Mr. Tekyo Konisi, to give his perspective on the issues posed by Dr. O.P. Agrawal in his initial address. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Secretary Mishra, and for kindly inviting us, ADB, to this very important forum and a very topical forum. And I do thank the distinguished panel members, panelists today for allowing me to join you, and also a great presentation by Dr. Agrawal on this opening, during the opening remarks. We do acknowledge, and cities are engine of growth for economy, every nation, and India is no exception. However, India's cities are growing at a much faster rate than other cities in the world. And the country has been urbanizing rapidly for the decade. For instance, India's urban population doubled, more than doubled between 1990 to 2020, reaching nearly 500 million, and it will further rise to close to 600 by 2030. And the consequences is startling, and the need for comprehensive development of physical and institutional, social and economic infrastructure with a green approach will be becoming essential, which I think all the panel member has agreed. And urban area does contribute over 60% of the India's GDP, and this may exceed close to 70% of India's GDP by 2030. So there's no doubt that we really need to think holistically in attracting, shall we say, the right livable cities and quality of life where you can attract people and investment to the city, and setting in motion a very virtuous cycle of growth of development. India does have a very unique advantage, shall we say, in attracting young people, particularly if the urban setting is right, and shall we say, high value added jobs in the city could be attracted, since India has special importance in terms of having one of the youngest and largest working aging population in the world. So this does add confidence in terms of if the setting is right and the high value added jobs are located in the city, then I think there's no doubt that the city of growth, or engine of growth on the economic growth. Now, what kind of ingredient is required, as we have been talking about? Earlier presentations stressed that the current urbanization pattern are caused unprecedented challenges to urban mobility system. The access to place and services has become increasingly difficult in the urban areas, and it's inconvenient and unsafe. Now, globally, the transport bias of urban mobility has been demonstrated by dominance of private motor vehicles, and increase in number of flyovers, and reach long lengths, and but road remains really, shall we say, congested. Increased motorization in the city has caused even increased trend of congestion, pollution, and increased travel time, thus producing negative externality. And I think Dr. Agrawal's presentation had touched upon this a bit. And there was a famous quote by Louis Montfort, that the great American urban architect and historian, who once said that building more roads to prevent congestion is a fat man loosening his belt to prevent obesity. So rapid motorization is thus posing a very great challenges for the government for providing sustainable and equitable public transport in our cities. Now, India has been experienced a significant horizontal and outward expansion, and this is well evidented from remote sensing data for Delhi, Bengaluru, Hyderabad in comparison to East Asia cities like Sichuan, Seoul, as per a recent study by ADB. In a large city such as Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai, more than a third of the urban agglomeration is found to reside outside the municipal limits of the city, and the latter has grown at the compounded annual rate of more than 3.5% compared with about 1% of the population within the municipal limits. Now, horizontal expanding spatial forms are characterized with limited public transport availability, large community distance, increased use of private transport, and accumulation of a private vehicle is the central area of city, causing congestion, air pollution, and road safety issues, which in the long term will cause detrimental impact on urban sustainability and livability and resilience and even economic potential. And traffic congestion is a major indication of the disjunction between the land use and transport system, and therefore maybe time to think about accessibility as people and environmental friendly service rather than transport as a mode. The negative externality of the growing urbanization on the transport can be resolved by promoting equitable, affordable, and comfortable and safe mass public transport system. And efficient public transport is a crucial component for urban infrastructure. Now, it does provide much better access to opportunity, support urban economic activity, and facilitates social interaction, and public transport reduces congestion and travel time and pollution. In a country like India, with teeming millions, there are a need for equitable distribution of road space amongst all citizens. And this can be only achieved by promoting efficient and effective public transport with high capacity. There was some mentioning earlier that the compact city or boutiques with residential living as close as possible to public transportation should be the goal to urban planners and city across all developing countries. Now, ready access to public transportation would mean residents and would no longer need a car to take them to work, to recreation, and this would make forward-looking city leaders in fight against climate change. Now, recently, however, there has been some decline in cycling in some Asian cities due to rising income and contaminated mobilization, including change social perception, which tends to view cycling as a means of transport for poor. Now, bicycle owners in developed countries, particularly in Western Europe countries such as Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany, this has been attributed to a transport and land use policy introduced since the mid-1970s in these countries in favorable condition for non-motorized and public transport facilities. And there is a need for complementing the public transport with non-motorized transport in walkable community. And therefore, city developers needs to think innovative sustainable urban design and non-motorized transport solution for seamless mobility and accessibility for the benefit for all. Also, Mr. Singh in his presentation also touched upon one interesting area, which was the transport-oriented development, or TOD, is a fast-growing trend in creating vibrant, livable, sustainable communities. Now, also known to TOD is the creation of compact, walkable, pedestrian-oriented, mixed-use communities centered around high-quality transport system. Now, this makes it possible for to live in a low-stress life without completely dependent on a car for mobility or survival, shall we say. And as Honorable Secretary had mentioned earlier, the government is taking very active steps to address the urban environment, including urban transport, and much work is lies ahead in a very, very short term period of time, shall we say. But we feel, ADB feels that everything is starting to fall in place, and in small mentioning of what ADB can contribute in this whole endeavor. As Secretary mentioned, we're supporting the metro rail in Jaipur, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Metro Neo in Nashik, and the iconic RRTS in the National Capital Region. And all these agencies concerned are very alive and needs to take a holistic, comprehensive view of urban planning, urban transport, and TOD. And we very much look forward in participating in this huge endeavor with the government of India. So thank you very much for once again for allowing ADB to participate in this discussion points.
Thanks a lot, Tekyo Kunisi. In fact, we have touched upon almost all aspects, whether it is the public transport, non-motorized transport, or the urban planning. A very, very comprehensive presentation on what is going to be the agenda when the country moves on a high economic growth trajectory. So thank you for all your insights into these things. In fact, I have been to Japan in my last visit, visited various places, and I got a lot of learning from there. One of the aspects which we touched upon on the urban planning, and I think that the urban planning is so much important, a wedding between the urban planning and the transport planning, so that the people do not have to travel a lot. They can cater to all their needs, whether it is the needs for education, health, entertainment, business. Most of the needs could be catered to in their neighborhood itself. In fact, in the keynote address today, in the inaugural session, the head of TUMI, he mentioned about one concept called the hyper-local cities. The cities where all the things are catered to in the close neighborhood, and that's what is the order. In fact, he mentioned about the city of Stockholm as a 1-minute city. The city feels proud. Everything is available within a minute. So that's a very, very important concept. And here I am inviting Professor Sevaram, who is a graduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and a postgraduate under Planning, Transport and PhD from a School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi. He is a professor there in the same institute right now. He has been helping us through the Town and Country Planning Office in various things, including the TOD, which you mentioned, which you ended up with. So I request Professor Sevaram to give his views on how the country, when it moves on the economic growth high trajectory, can address the issues of urban mobility through the urban planning. Professor Sevaram, please.
Thank you, sir. I'm first of all grateful to the Ministry for inviting me and giving these opportunities. And it is always a learning lesson to listen from you, sir. And as the time keeps on going, you keep on hearing the ideas, and at the end, probably most of the ideas are already being taken. Yet we have to find out something new, which could be a new dimension. Sir, in your remark, as well as from the ADB and also from NCRTC, Vinayji told us very nicely that time is one of the factors, actually. I would say that entire development earlier, even if you go for NCR Planning Board delineation, it was primarily based on the distance. and not based on the time. Slowly, we started talking about time, and the time took its new dimension. So that's how you're talking about. Very nicely discussed about how the planning has been done. And you, in a very brief remark, you talked about Japan. I have already written one of the examples of very good examples for particularly the regional planning in Japan. One should understand what have they done. They have reduced the time between the two settlements to an extent that you always maintain the quality of life. I'm sure in the time to come, when an RRTS comes, you will have a quality of life, livability in one, and you will also improve upon the transport quality of the city, because you will otherwise restrain so many persons reaching it here. One of the questions coming directly and addressing to those questions, where are we? Are we going to have the same trend as that of congestion? I think I need to take a minute to talk about the fundamentals. The fundamental says very clearly, if you look at the variation of the public private transport share versus GDP, it is somewhat a parabolic curve. It is somewhat a parabolic curve. What it means, it will increase and then it will become a maximum and then it will decrease. Unfortunately, we have been all the time taking example from the developed countries and trying to implement that, which is not in good context. So we need to understand where are we actually. That is the point. That is the first thing. The second question comes, will it continue like this only? Where are we now? We are in a stage now where few parameters like the speed of what? Speed of the public transport, you can say the ratio, public transport versus road network speed. If that ratio, if you increase, there will be a decrease of private share. And decrease of private share always depends upon the city sizes. Since we are not having this UMI only for Delhi, we are having for all kinds of cities. It is also important to draw the conclusions, relationship and findings are not same for high density cities and the low density cities. That is also an important, also not same for low vehicle ownership and high vehicle ownership. That is one. It would be nice that if in the ministry we come out some kind of a white paper as to already there is a benchmarking done from the IoT in terms of toolkit. But I'm talking about these are which can directly be implemented. You increase the public transport seat kilometer, the private transport share will decrease. How much it will decrease? It is also a function of the density, which density and which type of cities are we talking about. The other parameter, as Agarwal sir asked the question very clearly, where do we go and are we going to have the same? So, population densities. It is exponential variations we have with the private share. You keep on increasing the population density, the private transport will decrease because you'll have a compact nature, and that is where. But will it have that nature? That is again a function of the cities. Sir, over the period of time, sir, we have put a lot of effort. In fact, I'm a part of the team which is preparing Gati Sakti Regional Development Index. We are preparing it here. Once we have that, you will see that the index that we will have it for the entire country. You will be able to know which country is having disparity in terms of the development. Over the period of time, we have developed across the country, across the north-south, we have developed, but we are having the problems. Intercity travel has got priority. We have got a high level of connectivity indices. But where are we lacking? The secondary network. And this is where, again, we need to say. You rightly pointed out, sir, I was listening very carefully. You said that we are going into the urbanizations and we are having some cities which are converting into the settlement into urbanization. Some settlements are changing the hierarchy. But our problem is that, sir, probably we start looking only when we find the city has come to a certain size. Up till then, we keep on supplying the transport in an unorganized way, the IPT. You will find out somebody will come a vehicle will come like a jugaad. So that will serve as a public transport. Can we have some kind of a policy for those kind of settlement also, which otherwise do not become a problem for tomorrow? And then you say, sorry, we can't do anything for the city. That is one. What if you ask the user, what is the user's perception? User perception is that I want safety, I want reliability. What has encouraged the person to shift to the public transport? It is the reliability is the first thing that comes here. I am reliable. So if I have to go towards airport, there's a choice now. I would like to travel from New Delhi by airport metro instead of taking, because I know I may be trapped into if I do have a time limitation. So reliability is going to be the talk of tomorrow, be it reliability of travel, be it reliability of the network, be it congestion, etc. So this is another point, sir, which is going to be for tomorrow. Safety, reliability, affordability, as some of you already told. Clean. I was a part of the team which chaired the sessions on TNA, that is Technology Need Assessment, and that became a guiding factor for the Paris declarations. Actually, we worked very hard to arrive those parameters which could otherwise be considered for climate control. And there we were working that what should be the priority and how the India should go, and that's how the electric vehicle, etc., came into. But we were conscious enough that this electric vehicle somehow will get a momentum in the private transport, and so it has already taken into and two-wheeler, etc. I will take another a minute, sir. So this is one thing that I have talked about, that of how the cities, etc., can be bring to sustainability. Sir, the theme of the UMI is mobility for all. When you say mobility for all, it is for all cities, it is for all direction, it is for all users, it is at all times, it is in all manners. So when I say so, why I give a little examples of how Gurgaon, etc. came. Gurgaon came not because of transport, because the person was staying in 80s early, that is 88 and 90, we had a very high level of pollution. So everybody started shifting to a city where they could find a livability. Okay. So we came, I myself came to Gurgaon thinking, okay, this is the best place. My wife said, I think we should stay here only. So the clean air was the criteria. But less I know that I did not have any public transport. So the only option was either I have a margin of travel of 3 hours. I travel from here through the villages and go to this, take the bus to the Delhi border and then I go. Otherwise, I had no option but to go for vehicle ownership. So how the vehicle ownership started? The fringe areas, unfortunately, are still having inequality. I would request, we have from Delhi government, they should look at the spaces which are outside, the settlements, the fringe areas, etc. What do they lack? Actually, they lack in the transport supply. So that is one problem that we are facing it here. Sir, I don't think we are in mobility, we are only concerned about the road base. We are concerned road base, we are concerned rail base, air based. It's my humble request to all that when you are talking about RRTS, we are talking about high-speed rail, you are talking about air. We ourselves are working for benchmarking ground access parameters for airport. We find that one of the parameters which could be a question mark. I am traveling in air by half an hour, but it's taking me to travel to the airport 2 hours. Why should I go? I will go by road. Same thing may happen in RRTS. My request to Vinayji that ask the node and they to prepare the so-called the ground access plan. Maybe it is the job of the state government, no problem. But this could be issued in terms of advisory. We would like to have a ground access. You may call first and last mile connectivity. You may call any form. But this is one parameter which will give. I will say the ministry should pick up door to door. If you can assure me and if you can give me the benchmarking parameter, etc. We were in SPA were the key persons to do the research on the odd even scheme when the government was started, and we understood that in the first case it was working, second case it was somewhat not giving. Why? Because first case we were at that level, schools, etc. were closed. What it means actually, that these techniques are temporary, these are travel demand management, can work only up to a certain end, but they need to be taken into consideration. Travel demand management, you have to follow the supply restrictions, supply, so not supply management, demand restriction, demand management. And as already said that we need to also take about integrations to provide. If you talk about the metro, I think all of us know the story of metro, how Delhi Metro started. Delhi Metro started running their own mini buses to make sure that you not only A, they reduced the cost, B, they made it sure that you could go it. So I could be sure. So this is what I think we need to talk about. Ministry has already taken. And I would say, sir, we should be going with the government policy as a part of Gati Shakti. We should translate into intercity, then intracity, and the inter-urban cities. Look at the settlement patterns. We did a SP and we did a study. We found that how the settlements are growing in an average distance of 50 kilometer, 200 kilometer, 450 kilometer, 790 kilometers, something like that. What it means? You require different strategies for 50 kilometer, like a counter magnets cities. You have Delhi, Gurgaon, etc. You have Mumbai, Navi Mumbai. You have Gandhinagar and Ahmedabad. Large number of cities are coming in a pair of that. So we require that another policy for these cities which are working like a counter magnet cities. Indirectly, they are reducing some kind of urban pressure, but they are also creating the pressure in terms of the transport network. If not done, they will again get into the urban congestion, etc. Then 200 kilometer, etc., which is indirectly, we are already going up to 100 kilometers. So the RRTS, high-speed rail, will obviously provide a linkage to. Sir, it is through the government that we have found a very interesting competitions now. That earlier used to be the hierarchy used to be road, rail, air in terms of distance. Now I don't think we have competitions amongst all the modes. I have a choice either to go by road from here to Dehradun or by air or by trains now. This is the best time you will have it in the time to come. But I think down the line, not to take the time for other speaker, if the opportunities come, I will speak again. Yet from my side, this is what I say, sir. We need the concept of the planning, and planning also, we should not be, the time has changed now. We do have the long term, but long term also does not mean we keep on sleeping and keep on preparing the long term. We should be dynamic. We should be having a sensitivity towards the issues also. After all, we are all working for the public welfare. And we should say that I must reach to my destinations in a safe manner. And I just wanted to give an example of the bicycles, actually. Everybody started nowadays talking about the bicycle. We did a study on bikeability. I would send the report to the ministry, and you will understand that it is not a correct thing to unnecessarily decide a corridor of the bicycles. That has to be on user perceptions, it has to be on network perception, it has to be on land use, etc. And then arrive at, and then the huge money is getting invested, the public money, and at the end, the public is not using it here. I think the time has come that we need to look at these issues also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Sevaram. In fact, true to the profession, as a professor, once you start talking about something, I think the canvas is so full. I mean, you touch upon the rural to the urban to the covering from the connecting the big cities to the close by cities, almost anything and everything what could be possible in the urban transport or in the transport. You have touched upon most of it. So thanks a lot for giving this kind of a very, very elaborate perspective, because all these are very, very important. When the country is going through the urbanization, when the country is going through the high urban economic growth, all these are going to be issues which needs to be addressed by all of us. So I think we have the fifth panelist, Mr. Yash Crozet, who has not joined. He has shown his inability because he got some other preoccupation, so he is not there. I have only one question from the audience that is coming from Mr. Udit Ratna, but I think that has already been answered somehow through the pollution. So I take you on a different route altogether. The two perspectives which I want to give. One is, and then I will request Professor OP to come in, and then I'll be hearing from all the panelists before we close at 5:10. We have just 10 minutes to go. One perspective is I shared one public transport panel in the World Bank with Enrique Peñalosa, the mayor of Bogota. And he said that any city's development could be measured not by how many people own cars, but how many people are using public transport. It's a very, very important insight. If the city is really developed, economic growth is there, then the people will be using public transport. This is one. Another I would like to share, I mean, in my one of the visit to Seoul, the Seoul mayor, because normally whenever we talk about the public transport, we think in terms of adding a lot of infrastructure, maybe a lot of flyovers. Here was a mayor of the Seoul, Mr. Lee Myung-bak, who got almost 9.4 kilometers of the elevated highway on the Cheongseong River demolished. And that made him so popular. In fact, I had the privilege of walking on that river. It's such a beautiful public place it is, that he later became the president of South Korea. So he really endeared himself in the eyes of the people, because he addressed, normally when we make roads, we think in terms of the right of the car owners, not the right of the people. And we have to, the cities which are becoming more popular, they are converting their roads to the public places. So as we grow, do we need to add infrastructure in terms of widening the road, adding more flyovers, or improving the public transport like NCRTC Vinay spoke of, or the DMRC, or the BRTS, or the public transport, or even the shared mobility, or various other things which are going to, there's the technological, there are the methods through which people have better experience in terms of what Professor Sivaram said, safety, reliability, affordability, and a much better experience. So I call upon our first professor, not again professor, the word is coming, maybe he is going to become professor now. Professor O.P. Agrawal seems like the word is coming so automatically. Dr. O.P. Agrawal, and then I'll request all other panelists to have the quick reflection on this so that we can close in time. Thank you, Dr. O.P.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity again. I think it was fascinating listening to the discussion. And there are
your video is not on, Dr.
My video is on.
I'm not able to see you. Yeah.
You can't see me now?
No.
Okay. No one is able to see me?
Yes, now I can see you.
Okay. Yes. No, it was a fascinating discussion. I think very interesting points. What I want to do is pick up one or two points that I picked up as big pieces that we need to think about when we think of how do we make sure urban mobility does not become a constraint to economic growth, and how do we make sure that economic growth does not damage urban mobility. 3-4 things that I picked up. One, when I spoke about regional systems, the importance of regional systems when you are looking at 40 million cities. 40 million cities means cities with a population of 40 million, which Delhi is headed towards. It cannot be within that same 1600 square kilometers. It has to go beyond. That's why it's a regional system. And then, country director of the ADB, he also very rightfully pointed out that a lot of the growth is happening outside municipal boundaries where you don't have urban governance. Those are really, fringes of rural areas or outside urban areas. That kind of urban governance that you need, that really needs to extend to those areas. Professor Sivaram's major point that I picked up from him, apart from a lot of other things that he said, is let's not just look at what is happening in the developed world. This is where I talked about Atmanirbharta. We have to look at what is the solution for us. What is our problem? Is it just a replication of what the developed world has seen? Or are we seeing a problem of a very different nature? We are certainly moving to a size of a very different nature. So this is where we need to think of it. To my mind, the solutions will not come from within the transport system alone. The solutions will not come from engineering sources alone. This will need planning. Professor Sevaram mentioned that. You will need planners, you will need engineers, but I think extremely important, you will need economic geographies. You will need thinking around economic activities that we want in the city. What is the USP of that area? What economic activities do we need? Then get into planning, then get into mobility systems. I think this integrated approach is really what is going to be needed. Again, it's not going to be only about supply side measures. That means what we build to meet the travel demand, but what do we do to try and control that demand as well? So I think it needs a very holistic solution. That is what country director of the ADB said. I think we have to think holistically. It cannot be just engineering, cannot be only planning, it cannot be only economics. It has to be a convergence of all these. It's not an easy problem. It is a difficult problem, but we have to resolve this if we have to really get to our economic ambitions that we should be getting. I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, OP. So now I request Ashish for his reflections, please. Concluding remark quickly.
Sir, I think I will just conclude by touching upon this issue of reliability, affordability, predictability, and safety. On that benchmark, I think, sir, Metro has been able to draw in its fold a large number of people who otherwise were commuting on their own personal transport. In case of buses, we are yet to make that transition. And I think so far, in spite of addition of fleet, modernization of fleet, the profile of passengers on buses continues to largely be those who cannot afford any other mode of transport, because of the fare perhaps, and a variety of other factors. So I think if we can start making bus travel cooler for people, the youngsters, professionals, that will be actually a game changer in terms of affording them a reliable alternative. But that, of course, also depends on a variety of other factors, but I don't want to waste time now since we have barely 5 minutes left. That's also from my side. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashish. So, Vinay, your reflections on the discussion today and future course. Vinay.
Sir, I would like to emphasize and probably say that this concept of seamless integrity between various modes of public transport is the essential and core to move people from private vehicles to public transport, sir. Until unless we remove these changeovers or the problems at the changeovers or the time penalty at the changeovers, sir, we will not be able to move people from private transport to public transport. It is very, very essential that all agencies who are in this business of providing public transport should come together and they should provide this network of networks so that we can move significantly people from private vehicles to public transport and thereby reducing the congestion and pollution on the roads and in the cities, sir. So there are other aspects of this, but I'm stopping here only, sir. Thank you, sir.
No, thanks a lot, Vinay. In fact, Professor Sevaram in his address very clearly mentioned that if you create public systems, the people are going to move from the private to the public. This is the lack of the system that people move to, and he gave his own example from his own life that how he has to depend on his private vehicle. So now I request Professor Sevaram to give his, not his professors like a lecture, but a quick brief snippet on the discussions that you have right now. Thank you, Professor Sevaram.
Only one line, sir. Thank you for listening to me patiently. And it's always I would say.
I would like to see you also. Can you on your video?
Very, very charming relationship I have always had with you, sir. I will say only one word. That is the way we have auditor, we have account auditor, we have safety auditor. Please do mobility auditing. That's all from my side. If you do that, thank you, sir.
I think that's like a mantra.
Yes, yes, sir.
Audit is like a mantra. So
Yes,
you put the whole thing together. What Dr. OP has said in so many words, you put it in one mantra, the mobility audit. So thank you, Professor. So now I request our ADB chief, Tekyo Konisi, because he has so much of experience working in different parts of the world, and the country which he comes from is a huge success in mobility. We have learned a lot from him. So his words, please, Mr. Tekyo Konisi.
Thank you very much, Secretary. And humbly, you have mentioned Japan at when you visited. And in comparison, shall we say, Japan is, in terms of population side, close to Bihar or Maharashtra. So it just fits in right into one of the states of India. So thereby, the message that I will probably say is, we need to look at not only one size fits all approach will not work given the size and shall we say characteristics and also various state structure and also shall we say geography and also topography. I'm sure the city planning will have to be more looked at in a holistic manner, that try to restrict one size fits all policy may not work for certain states. So just wanted to float that idea that this is particularly true that cities in India creates policy to encourage densification and develop within the transit influence zone, but have applied a one-size-fits-all approach by providing higher FAR along the entire length of the transit corridor rather than linking FAR to the node and place values on the segment. So I think holistically we need to look at, of course, as one of the panelists said, we need to look at the demand side also, but in terms of the mapping out the ecosystem, I think one size fits all may not always, shall we say, be the palatable approach. And some states may be very successful, and those model could be the base, shall we say, blueprint to be able to replicate to other states with incorporating the state's characteristics, shall we say. But allow me to stop there.
Thanks a lot. In fact, all the panelists, and you mentioned it rightly, one size doesn't fit all. You have to have different approach. And today at 8 o'clock, our Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs is going to recognize, award 12 different excellence in the urban transport, from where we learn a country of the size of India has got the variety of it's a big canvas on which different kinds of things are experimented, made success, and from there we learn. So I think this was a very good discussion. I'm sure all those who have joined on the digital mode because of the COVID challenges must have got various issues related to this. India is going to move on a very high economic trajectory. Our policies, our fundamentals, the government's approach is all towards that, and mobility is going to be a challenge which we need to address. We have a lot of learning within the country, whether it is intra-city or intercity mobility, and now with nearly $1.25 trillion Gati Shakti scheme, which has been launched by the Honorable Prime Minister very recently, where it is going to have a multimedia integration, whether it is air, whether it is rail or road or any other mode of transport. I think the country has a good future. We will all have to contribute through different ways, whether it is technology, innovations, learning from outside, learning within the country. So that's the future for our economic growth and urban mobility. I thank everybody who has joined through the digital mode on this panel discussion, and I greatly acknowledge and thank from the bottom of my heart all the 5 panelists who have joined today in this very rich discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.